Hello, and good morning. I hope everybody is having a wonderful Wednesday. I am going to be talking to you about cardio today. So, I know it's everybody's fun favorite thing. Everybody loves cardio, right? Everybody loves getting sweaty. You guys see my post from earlier this week about glistening. So, you know, some of us don't mind getting sweaty, right? Some of us are like, oh, it's okay. Like, I know that I was working. It's going to be all right. But some of us are like, ooh, sweat, nasty, gross, right? So if you are that person that hates to be sweaty, know that you can reframe that. So I called it, good morning, Wendy. I'm so glad I can see your comments today. Yay! It makes me so happy. So if you are someone that hates to sweat, I encourage you, to think about it in a different way, to change your mindset about it. So some people say it is, fat leaving the body, which is kind of a myth, but people call it glistening, people call it glittering, people call it, look at me, I'm like sparkling, everybody has a different connotation that they kind of associate sweat with. And so I will say that if this is you, find something to make it be a little bit more encouraging to get sweaty, because there's nothing wrong with getting sweaty. Getting sweaty is actually releasing a lot of the toxins, and it's your body's natural way of cooling you off. Okay, and so in all actuality, that's what it's doing, is it's perspiring to be able to allow you, hey Michelle, to be able to cool yourself off. And so if you are sweating, you know that you are doing cardio. Not to say that, some people sweat, a lot more than others. I know I'm someone that I really have to be sit out and I might not be just dripping. Everybody's glands are a little bit different. So don't feel like because you're not sweating a ton that you're not doing a good cardiovascular workout. But do know that sweat is nice and normal and it's the body's cooling system. Okay. And so it's good. It's a good way of us knowing that what we're doing is working. Okay. So with that being said, kind of moving forward with cardio. So let's talk about some of the benefits of cardio, because I know it's one of those things that a lot of people are just really have a hard time, being consistent with. It's something that we do, but we do it half-heartedly, or maybe we don't do it as often as we would like, or maybe we have a hard time pushing ourselves. And so we'll kind of get into that a little bit later as well. But some of the benefits, okay? So it does encourage brain and joint health, okay? It also helps the decline of brain functioning as we age. And so some studies have actually shown a correlation with protecting against developing Alzheimer's, which I think is huge. Because, we all have different levels of memory, short-term, long-term. Those things naturally deplete and aren't as sharp as we age. And so it's amazing how the Lord has created our bodies to be able to combat that through exercise. It also decreases your chances of stroke because it increases the blood flow. And so keeping your body going and up is going to allow you to be able to have more propensity to have increased endorphins as well, okay? And so I will tell you this firsthand. My family always knows if I've been too long without exercise, right? And so I didn't realize this was going to be a bystander of, being intentional and consistent with exercise. But if I've gone 4 or 5 days without exercise, my husband will be like, when was the last time you worked out? And that's his nice way of saying, you are really moody. And so endorphins are released when we exercise, and they do help with mood. They also help with stress. And so when we are stressed, our body secretes a hormone called cortisol. And cortisol tells the body, to do a lot of things, hey Nettie, that we might not necessarily want. One of those things being stored fat, right? Okay. And so when we're in that state of stress, a lot of times our body doesn't realize that stress is not something that's external in regards to, a bear chasing us. Okay. And so if you guys have heard me say this before, it's my little cliche and it's what I always say. And it's true every time I say it. So our bodies don't understand that we're living in the 21st century. Okay. And so usually when we're in a state of stress, it's because way back when, think about it, when things were a little bit easier in some aspects of life. We were hunting, we were picking, we were gathering, and if we were running, it was because of the fact that we needed food or we were going to be somebody's food, right? Okay. And so with that being said, cortisol allows for the body, to stop functions of the organs and somewhat to allow you to put more energy towards that movement. Okay. And so if you are in constantly a state of stress and things aren't working properly, it slows digestion, it slows all of these things down. So then that way it can put more emphasis in the energy in the moving part. If you aren't doing what it thinks needs to happen, which is moving more because you are stressed because a bear is chasing you, what's going to end up happening? You're going to consume more because of the high cortisol, and then you're not going to burn it off. Your body is going to also say, oh, she's really stressed. The bear is chasing her. When she consumes something, let's, store that as fat because I don't know how much longer she's going to need to keep running, right? But ultimately, a lot of times when we are stressed, what is the first thing to go? It's exercise, right? It's those things that a lot of times inhibit stress to become less manageable, right? Okay. And so that's another reason why it's really important to have cardiovascular exercise. It also helps with sleep. It helps you get to sleep faster, as well as it has been shown to also increase your REM cycles. And so, when you sleep, you go through these like 90-minute cycles. And so people have seen that there is a correlation between cardiovascular exercise and completing those REM cycles to where your body actually restores everything back to baseline, which one of those things could be cortisol as well. Okay. So cardiovascular exercise is very important. I know you guys know this, but it's always nice to get a little reminder on why. How many times do we say, oh, you're supposed to do your cardio, it's so important, but nobody ever really gives you the explanations. And so I could sit here for hours and hours about an explanation of why it is good, but there's a few things, a few tidbits, right? Okay. So if you are watching, tell me what you love to do for cardio. Okay. Is it walking? Is it running? Biking? Do you love to go through your neighborhood? Do you like to do it at the gym? What do you prefer? Let me know in the comments below. I will tell you. I know I said this last week, so if you were here last week, you heard me. But running is just not something that is my friend. I have wanted to love to run. Ooh, Tybo, yes. Ooh, Tanessa. Yes, see, you heard me again with me and my hate for running. Tanessa is a huge runner. She's my fangirl in regards to that. Like, I am her fangirl. Let me say that. I would love to be like Tanessa and run as much as she does, and loved it the way that she does. So getting out and in the trails, I think is beautiful as well. I do enjoy that. So I will tell you, when we do cardiovascular exercise, it is really, really important to constantly change what you are doing. Yep, walking. I love walking too. I think walking is a great example for what I was going to say next, which is if you are doing the exact same thing every single time you do cardiovascular training, your body is not being taxed enough to create the change that you want to see. Okay. And so one of the ways that I always say this is if you take your dog walking and your dog goes down the street and knows that you are going to turn right because that's the way that you always turn every time you go on a walk, we need to switch it up. Yeah, Michelle, I get that. That sometimes it's hard to find things that we love and that we enjoy. I will tell you that as spring is here, I don't know where you guys, it might not be here. I always forget this because, we're in Texas and like we've been hitting 80s, so spring is totally here, and it might not be where you are at, Michelle, but I will tell you that finding something that you enjoy makes the world of difference. And that's kind of what I was saying earlier, is that I've always wanted to love to run. Like, it's something I look at people running and I'm like, oh wow, that looks so fun, man, that's going to be really fun when I try it. And it just isn't. And so I have found things that are really fun for me though. I love spinning. And it's so funny because I know my runners would say that they hate spinning most of the time. Ooh, yeah. So hopefully you can get out, Michelle, with the snow being melting and getting a little bit more active. Maybe not on a spin bike just yet. But I love spin. I love to like go to the gym and take a spin class. Okay. Not only do I that, I have a bike that I enjoy. I have a road bike too. But my runners are always like, why would you spin to nowhere? It's just silly. That's just absurd, right? But do know that like once you find that thing that is yours, it will be so much easier to be consistent with it. Okay. Now I'm not going to lie to you. Like, are you going to like love it every single day you wake up to do it? No. Janessa, maybe you can talk to this too. I mean, as much as you love to trail run, like, are there some days that you get up and you're like, man, I got to trail run? Okay. I know once I get started, it'll be fun, but you kind of give yourself that motivation, that connection to be able to start it. And so this is where I would say that having a plan is huge. Okay. So I know when I am going to the gym, what I'm going to do before I step in the door. Okay. I know for me, sometimes that's a class. Like, I will be completely honest with you. I love taking classes because you know what? I don't have to find the motivation. I have someone else telling me exactly what I need to do, and I have everybody else around me in the class making sure I do it, because you know what? I'm a competitive person, and if you're gonna knock out 20 squats, I'm gonna knock them out too. My legs might be burning, but you know what? I'm gonna do it because I can't let somebody else see me fail, which might not always be the best thing, but it is something that I feel like drives me for good intentions. And so I will say, if you are consistent with what you are doing, that's when you're going to see the progressive change. Yes, Tanessa, I agree with that completely. Like, I don't know how many Sunday mornings I'm like, oh man, it's a Sabbath. That means I can just like rest, right? That means that I can just take a full day to rest. And it's like, no, we need to rest. Rest at church. We need to be able to be refilled, and we have the rest of the day to kind of do that. And the same thing happens with exercise. If we get up and we get it done, how much better is the day after we've been fulfilled with those endorphins, right? So consistency is the key with cardiovascular exercise, as well as creating enough taxation to have change occur. So I know sometimes you get out and you're consistent with your walking. So if you guys were here last week, we talked about intentional movement. Okay. And so do know that intentional movement is not exercise. Okay. So cardiovascular training is different than just going out and having a nice, lovely stroll, which there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with walking at a very, very low pace, at a very moderate pace. That is intentional movement, but that is not cardiovascular exercise. Okay. Cardiovascular exercise is going to be measured on like a perceived exertion scale. Okay. So if you are someone that has a smartwatch, or if you have someone that wears a heart rate monitor, this is something that you guys, already know about. But I will tell you, if you don't have one of these things, you can still know if you're doing cardio based off of a perceived exertion scale. Okay. So perceived exertion is basically, how hard am I working, right? Okay. So we're going to take this scale, between 1 and 10. Okay. And so 1 would be, I'm sitting on the couch and I'm binge watching my favorite show. The only thing I'm having to do is, push the button on the remote and blink my eyes, right? Okay. So this is something that you could do all day, every day. You would never, run out of energy to probably do this. So if you are looking to have something that's of moderate pace, that's not a 2-3. That's not something that you could do for quite some time, like walking at a very, very slow pace. So think about like when you're shopping at the mall. Okay. So this is not something that you usually do unless you're mall walking. When you're actually shopping, you're like stopping and you're looking, your heart rate's not going up. It's something that you could do. It is standing, it is moving, it is doing, more calories than, what we were doing on the couch, but it is not cardiovascular exercise. Okay. So we're looking, when we talk about cardio, for something to be maybe like a 4 or 5. So it's something that does get you winded. It is something that is difficult to accomplish for a long period of time. When you first start off, when you're in your warm up, you're like, oh, wow, I could do this. Yeah, this is something that, hey, Monica, I could do this. I could do this for, forever. This is not that bad. But once you get into it and your heart rate starts going, about 5 minutes into it, you're like, this is getting pretty taxing. If you are with a friend and it's hard to talk, That's cardio, okay? We want to make sure that we're taxing enough to create the change, okay? I know I've said that several times, but that's the take home, today, is making sure that you have a difference between intentional movement, which is great, okay? Getting our 10,000 steps in, making sure that we're active, parking further away, things that we were talking about last week. Those are all wonderful, wonderful things. But there is a difference between that and cardiovascular exercise, okay? So we had our 4-5, that's our moderate intensity, okay? Moderately intense exercise. You can do this for about, what is recommended is about 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. And so some of you guys are like, whoa, that's a lot. There's no way that that's possible. You do not have to do this all at one time. Do know that, you can get up in the morning and you can do 10 minutes. And you can do 10 minutes at your lunch, and you can do 10 minutes when you get home. That is completely fine. There is nothing that says that it is more beneficial for you to do it all at one time versus segmenting it out throughout the day. Okay, so keep that in mind when we talk about moderate exercise. From moderate exercise, when you are doing this on a routine basis, from here, if we needed to up our game a little bit, what we would move to is what's called vigorous exercise. Okay, so vigorous is going to be somewhere between like a 7 and an 8 on that scale of 1 to 10. Okay, so this is something that you could do for a short amount of time. It's going to take a lot of energy before you have to like back it off and recover, okay? And so the example that I give with this is HIIT training, okay? So maybe you've heard this before, but HIIT training actually stands for high intensity interval training, okay? So this is the best way to get, a small amount of time that you have to be the biggest burn, okay? The best bang for your buck, okay? This is your deal breaker, right? So this is your, hey, I did this and this is really awesome. This is going to be that thing that you're not going to have to stay consistent with for a long time to get the same benefits from, okay? So I will say, if you are just starting out, you can do HIIT training. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? You can do HIIT training with your walking, with your spinning, with your jogging, with your rollerblading. You can do it on any of those things. So what you're looking for is intervals. Okay, so if you're going to get on a machine, this would look like a bar graph. Okay, so you would have something that was very high, and then something that was very low, something that's very high, and then something that's very low. Okay, so for an example with walking, you could do a power walk for a minute. Okay, by the end of that minute, you should feel like, oh my goodness, I don't know that I could do another minute. If that's what you're saying, it's the right intensity. Very good. Okay, so then you're going to pull it back and you're going to recover for a minute. Okay, and then you're going to go back and you're going to power walk for that next minute, and you're going to keep consistent like a bar graph, okay, through the entire workout. So now, can you do this for 30 minutes? Maybe, but maybe you can only do it for 10, and that's completely okay to start out with. When we are talking about the recommendations for vigorous training, you're only needing about 75 minutes, okay? And so 75 minutes a week. It would be easy for you to kind of break that up into smaller sections, and that's completely okay. If you want to do it, let's say like 30 minutes one day and 30 minutes another day as you build up, that's okay too. The great thing about cardiovascular exercise is that it can be pushed in and segmented out, as well as it doesn't take as much time as you really think it would. Okay, a lot of times we think, oh my gosh, I have to spend 45 minutes on the treadmill. This is going to take forever. I don't have 45 minutes. You do not have to spend 45 minutes on the treadmill. And I will tell you, if you are doing 45 minutes at a constant pace, you are getting a lot less out of that cardiovascular exercise than if you were doing half that amount of time, but doing intervals. Okay, so our body always wants to go back to that baseline. Okay, our body wants to create homeostasis, right? Because it knows that it can keep going for a long period of time when you have consistency. Okay, but if you're doing this with the bar graph, it's always guessing what's coming next. Are we going to go high or are we going to go low? And so because of that, you're burning more calories. Okay, more bang for your buck, as well as your body's having to work to figure out what's going on. Okay, so cardiovascular exercise is here for your heart. That's what it's here for. Okay, it's here to help build and develop the lungs. And so if you ever have that burning sensation after you get done with cardio and you feel like, oh my gosh, that was so difficult, That is because we have a weakened cardiovascular system. The more that you do it, the more consistent that you are with it, the less out of breath that you will be, and the less likely you will be to be sore within like chest wise or breath wise the next day. Okay. So do know that it's okay to be sore. Okay. Do know that it's okay to be sweaty. It's okay to be out of breath. Okay. I will tell you when you are out of breath, quick tip. You want to stand up nice and straight and breathe. Okay. So many times when we get done with something that's very taxing, we bend over, right? We bend over and we put our head in between our knees and we try to get this air out. But do know that when you are in that bent position, what you're getting more than anything is your exhale, which is not oxygen, it's CO2. So you are bent over, you are exhaling out CO2. And then when you go to inhale, it is very difficult to inhale when you are bent over. Stand up straight, inhale oxygen from all and in around you, not from just the CO2 that you have expelled out, and you will be more likely to catch your breath and recover. Okay, so just like I mentioned earlier last week, do know if you're going to start something consistent with cardiovascular training, it's always important for you to ask your doctor and make sure that you are cleared and safe for those things. If you feel pain in your chest, you always want to stop cardiovascular training. Catch your breath. And then from there, if you want to pick up again, you can, or listen to your body. If you're like, oh man, I'm done for the day. That's okay. You got out there and you did it. The biggest thing is to be safe. Okay. And so listen to your body. If it is something that you feel excruciating pain, if you feel sharp pain, if you feel extremely out of breath, we do want to stop all of that cardiovascular activity at that time. Okay. It is recommended to do no more than a 10% increase from week to week on what you are doing. This allows for you to have progressive change that is less likely to create injury. Okay. So I know the first time that I got out there and I was like, man, I'm going to beast it out. I'm going to, run me like a 5K. And I had plantar fasciitis for months to come, just saying. So do not be like young me, who thought that, she was invincible, but do know that slow progression is the best way to go. Okay. So start out small. If it's 5 minutes, if it's 3 minutes, if it's 10 minutes, that's okay. But look at, kind of gradually increasing, your time under tension. And then from there, kind of working up to either 30 minutes of a moderate intensity exercise about 5 days a week. Or if you're looking more of that vigorous where you're doing like the HIIT training back and forth with the bar graph, that's only 75 minutes, okay? So there are your limits and your recommendations for cardiovascular training this week. I will let you know, I'll remind you next week when I do my post for the live again, but I am gonna be in my group from here on out because it is very difficult to research anything on a page. So with Facebook, it allows us to look back and scroll, but a lot of times when you guys scroll through my page, it's just things that were the highlights. So if it was something that was liked a lot, that's what's going to be at the top. It's not always in chronological order, and so it makes it very difficult if you wanted to go back and see this again to do that. And so I am going to be in my free group from here on out because from this you could actually use the lovely little search bar at the top of it and type in, cardio training, cardio live, and you could look back and see all of those things and make it a little bit easier for this information to be here for you if you ever wanted to go back and look at it again. So if you have a friend that is here and watching sometimes or catches the replay, let them know as well, and I'll put a reminder out again. So next week we're going to be talking about resistance training, so join me back. I would love to know about your comments below. If you have any questions, I will come back in. I'll check the live again and answer any questions that you guys see fit. But if you don't have any questions for today, I will say I hope you have a wonderfully blessed Wednesday. Thank you so very much for waking up early, for coming and chatting with me. It is a pleasure to get to see you guys and to know that you're watching. So, yep, Tanessa, okay. She said, I'd like to think that I'm doing a bit of HIIT when I'm running on trails since yep. I agree with that completely. And so you don't always have to do it with with timing wise, if you are somewhere that is very hilly, like I will tell you in my neighborhood, it's another reason why I go to the gym, to be quite honest with you, because it is nothing but hills. And a lot of times, like, I either have a stroller or I have a trailer on my bike, and like, my kids are heavy. I'm just saying. And so, yes, that is HIIT training for sure. So it's not always just time based, but it is resistance based or speed based. And so you could do it with speed and time, or you could do it on resistance. And I would say, even with your trails, Tanessa, it would be somewhat better because they're not as consistent on intervals to where your body would anticipate the change, and your resistance is going to be different. And so sometimes you're going to have a bigger hill, and sometimes you're going to have a smaller hill, and then sometimes you're going to have one that's really, really steep, and then one that's not, one that's really long, one that's really short. And so do know that resistance is a great way to incorporate HIIT training too. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Tanessa. I appreciate it. Wendy, you are so welcome. Thank you for always being here. I appreciate it. So if you have any other questions, leave those in the comments below. Join me in my group, my free group next time, and I will put the link in that below. If you are watching as a replay, #replay for me, please, and have a wonderful Wednesday. Bye, ladies.